Evening, we'll be wrapping up the ministry of my character, and we'll be looking at patience and forgiveness. And I think we talk about these characteristics very often. We've heard about them often enough, but when it comes to exercising them, that is where we keep failing. So I don't think that we can ever be reminded enough. I don't think we can exhaust the topic of patience and forgiveness, because it might sound like a cliche topic at this point, or we hear it so many times, but are we living it? Are we living what we keep hearing? Are we living what we keep reading? So this evening, we're going to finish up with patience and forgiveness. So what is patience? Sister Paula, what is patience? Sister Thomas, what is patience? The ability to accept delays, or waiting on something, yes. So it's the ability to accept delays, or you're waiting on something. Sister Paula, any other answer? You can't use back the same word, you know. Okay. So waiting on something regardless of the length of time that you have to wait. A brother here, any suggestions? What is patience? Waiting a long time for something. All right? So believing that it is going to happen, right? So Sister Paula is tying in a faith aspect. So you're waiting with the expectation that something is going to happen. All right, so patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delays, challenges, or suffering, but there's another important addition: without becoming anxious, annoyed, or frustrated. So true patience means that we're not just waiting for something to happen, but in the waiting, we are not becoming agitated, we're not becoming frustrated, we're not becoming anxious. So while we are waiting on it, we maintain a positive attitude. We don't have a calm bada attitude, or, frustrated attitude, no matter what it is that we are waiting on. So we live in a world where everything happens quickly. So we live in what we call a microwave generation, right? We want instant gratification. We want everything to happen now, right? So people want to get rich quickly. That is why some of them resort to scamming, or other illegal activities, because when you do it the right way, it takes too long. According to their standards, it takes too long. So people want to get things done tomorrow. We don't want to wait, and we don't want to go through a process. We want everything to happen overnight. So even sometimes we might get a prophecy about something, and we think that because the word was spoken, we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and the word is going to come to pass. But we've also looked at David, and we see that David was anointed as king, but he did not go into the palace the following day. So sometimes we get a word, and it requires a length of time before that word comes to pass. But we get impatient, and we can't wait on God's timing. So we get frustrated. So if we get frustrated, anxious, agitated, we're not really exercising patience. So we want to succeed quickly. I want to wake up tomorrow morning and be a millionaire. I don't want to put in any work and understand that consistency and hard work and sacrifice is what it takes to achieve my goals. I want to achieve my goals tomorrow, right? So information is so easily accessible to us. If you just go on your phone, type something into Google, you get results in milliseconds. literally milliseconds. So because we're so accustomed to this fast-paced world where you have everything at your fingertips, we become impatient when we have to wait. So we expect that everything we want to obtain or achieve, we should get it in our timing. So sometimes people say, okay, they want to, the men mostly, some women too, they want to build muscle, right? And I ask my young people all the time, if you want to bulk up and you only exercise one time for the week and you only eat right one time for the week, are you going to get the results that you desire? No. Or sometimes you exercise one time and you run gone in front of the mirror wondering where the results are when you've only done this thing one time. So we want to have everything now. We'll go to KFC and the line is at the door. Or you go to the doctor's office, and I can speak from experience now because sometimes patients will come and I say, where do they get this entitlement from? You come and see that there were other people waiting before you, but you want to get through before everybody else. You want to cut the line. You know, nobody else's needs are important. You are the most important person here, you know. Who cares about everybody else's concerns? And not just that, the fact that they made the effort to be there early so that they could be seen early. But you come late and you want to get through before everybody else. We get impatient. So sometimes we ask God for things that we are not yet prepared for. And I always say a premature blessing is a curse. Because sometimes if God blesses us with what we ask for before the time, when we're not yet prepared for it, it will end up destroying us. So we have to exercise patience when it comes to waiting on God. So we have different areas in which we must exercise patience. And the first one is waiting on the Lord. 2 Peter 3, verse 8 says, but do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. So this is simply saying to us that God's timing is totally different from ours. Time is just a concept. God created time. He doesn't exist within the bounds of time. So sometimes we think that when God says something is going to happen soon, it means the next hour or tomorrow morning. And sometimes the soon is a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Romans 8, verse 25. Let's write these scriptures down. Romans 8, verse 25. It says, but if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. Meaning without anxiety, without frustration, without anger, without irritation. And we all know Isaiah 40, verse 31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. We say it, we sing it, we sing the song, but do we really live by the words? Because when we're waiting on something that God has promised to us, and I'm guilty too, right? Sometimes God has made a promise to us, and because we've been waiting for a while and the physical does not match what God has promised to us in the spiritual, we get frustrated. Sometimes we even lash out at God thinking that his character has changed. He's no longer the promise keeper. We sing about it, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper. But when the time comes for us to wait on his promise, suddenly, God, you forget me. God, you forget the promise you make. No, he did not forget. It's just not yet the time because he knows better than we do. So sometimes we want God to give us something now, but our character, which is what we're talking about, the ministry of my character, our character cannot sustain the very thing that we're asking God for. So you're asking God for a promotion at work, but you have a negative attitude, you treat your co-workers poorly, you're disrespectful to your boss, but you're praying and fasting for a promotion. But God sees and knows that if he gives you this promotion, your character will not sustain it. Your character can't sustain what you're asking for. So sometimes we want to run ahead of God's timing, thinking that we know better than He does. But He sees in the long run, this promotion, you were going to lose it because your attitude was not right. Your character was not ready yet. So God would rather you wait while He refines you, and then at the appointed time, He will give you the promotion so that when you get it, you don't flop yourself or you don't flop God either. Because He knew that if He had given it to you at the time that you wanted it, it would have been your detriment. It would not have been beneficial to you or the people around you. So another time that we are expected to exercise patience is through trials. And we talk about it all the time, but yet still when the trials come, it's a totally different story. So there is no human being who loves hard times. Not one of us. We don't like trials. We like when life is sweet and easy sailing and everything is going smoothly. But the Bible did not tell us that if we're Christians, we're exempt from challenges, that life is going to be easy and that we'll always get what we want and we'll never go through anything. Even Jesus went through trials. Even Jesus went through challenges. So we are not exempt from going through challenges. Romans 5 verse 3 tells us that we glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation worketh patience. That word patience comes up again. Patience gives us experience, and experience gives us hope. So in going through these trials, we're actually working those patience muscles. We're building up the spiritual man when it comes to being patient. Romans 12 verse 12 tells us to rejoice in hope and be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. So once again, the word is telling us that we have to exercise patience. Now, the thing about these characteristics that we want to have, it's funny. If we want to be patient, it means that sometimes we'll have to wait. Because how can you exercise patience if you're never in a situation where you have to wait? It's the same thing with faith. How can you exercise faith if there's never a period of time where you don't see what you want happening and you have to have faith in God? So the very characteristics that we've been talking about, compassion. How can you show compassion if you're never placed in a situation where somebody is going through something and you are given the opportunity to show compassion? How can you show self-control if you're never in a situation in which you are tempted? So sometimes God allows these things to happen because He needs us to have this fruit that the Bible tells us to have. Because how can you say you're a compassionate person if you've never been in the position to show someone compassion? How can you say you're patient if you've never been in a situation where your patience is tested? It does not make any sense. So these tribulations and trials are meant to refine our character. Because we can't say, I'm a patient and loving Christian. But when we ask, where's the evidence of that? We don't have any because we've never had to be patient. We've never had to show compassion. We've never had to show kindness and gentleness and all the other things that we have been discussing. So Hebrews 10 verse 36 says, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised. So you have to persevere. And persevere means to endure, but not just endure and complain the whole time. Endure without getting frustrated, anxious, agitated. You cuss out everybody and you cuss out God. So perseverance is a part of being patient, because when you're impatient, you want to throw the towel in. You're ready to give up, right? So young people, yes, this generation, Gen Z, and whatever generation come after them, very weak-minded. At every minor inconvenience, they throw in the towel. Impatient, no perseverance, no endurance. If you're having a bad day, the whole world must feel your wrath. If you're having a bad day, I neglect my responsibilities. That's the type of generation that is coming up now. That as soon as something is not going their way, they give up. They neglect their responsibilities. They neglect their roles. Everybody must feel their wrath. But that is not how God has called us to operate when we don't get our own way. We are called to persevere with patience. We're called to endure trials and develop our character. So when you don't endure, you have this defeatist attitude. There's no resilience. So as soon as breeze blow, you drop down. And that's what the Bible calls somebody who builds their foundation on sand. It's people who have a sandy foundation that behave like that as soon as anything is not going their way. Impatient, angry, agitated, and worst case scenario, just give up. Throw in the towel completely. Can't bother. I'm frustrated. That's not the kind of Christian that we should be. We ought to show patience in every situation. So the first instance of patience was being patient when it comes to waiting on God. And then the second one was through trials. The third one is being patient with each other. And that one is so important because we see each other every day. We see each other all the time. We interact with each other all the time. And the word says if we cannot love each other who we are seeing physically, how then can we say that we love God whom we cannot see? So the word is calling us to be patient with each other. Now, do we have to deal with difficult people sometimes? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have some people who know that they are difficult and they deliberately continue to be difficult because they want to provoke you. But Ephesians 4 verse 2 says, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. It says we should bear with each other. So it doesn't mean that you're going to allow somebody to step all over you, right? But sometimes people's behavior is not really a reflection of how they feel about you. Sometimes it's a reflection of something that is going on inside their own life. They have some deeply rooted trauma that is causing them to project and to behave a certain way to you. But we internalize it and say this person is provoking me without realizing that the way they're behaving is probably because they are going through something. So how does your patience come in? Patience comes in and compassion comes in when you try to reason with the person another way and say, I realize that you always talk to me a certain way. You're always angry. Are you feeling okay? Is everything actually okay in your life right now? And you would be surprised that sometimes people open up to you and say, things are really hard right now for me. And there's your opportunity to show compassion. Compassion. So we have to bear with each other. Sometimes when you see somebody acting a certain way, it's not just because they don't like you. Sometimes it's because they don't like you. But sometimes those persons are actually enduring their own form of suffering. Does it make it right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't make it right for you to take out your problems on other people, especially when they're not the source of your problem. But that is where patience and compassion comes in, where you can reason with this person and say, is there a way that I can show love to this person that would make them realize that, hey, whatever they're going through, I can give them a word of encouragement. I can share a word of prayer. I can share a scripture with them that will help them through this very situation that they're going through. So sometimes the people who we are impatient with, God is also using them to refine us. Because if, like I was saying before, if God knows that you're a hot-tempered person, He will allow certain situations and certain people to provoke you so that you can learn to stop being hot-tempered and angry and impatient. So sometimes you just walk and say, the devil tests me and whatever. But sometimes it's God who is allowing the testing because He wants your character to be your ministry. And as your character is right now, you can't minister to anybody when you're always angry and bitter and upset and you react to every situation. God is trying to use the person sometimes to teach you a lesson. So we are called to be patient with each other. Because the word tells us in Corinthians that love is patient. Love is patient and love is kind. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered and keeps no record of wrongs, which ties into forgiveness. Proverbs 14, verse 29. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. That's Proverbs 14, verse 29. And Proverbs 16, verse 32 says, better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. So the word is telling us that we need to exercise patience with each other. So we need to exercise patience with God. We need to exercise patience when we're going through trials. And lastly, we need to exercise patience with each other, our brothers and sisters. Sometimes we fail as Christians to give each other love and grace and patience. And this is why the Bible is calling us to be slow to anger, slow to speak, but just be patient, be gentle, be humble with each other. And if all of us were to decide one day that I am going to be patient, I'm going to show compassion, I'm going to show love, most of the issues that we have in church would not exist. And that is why the verse then goes on to say that love covers a multitude of sins. Because if we truly operate in love, we will automatically have patience, we'll automatically show compassion, we'll automatically be gentle, we'll automatically have self-control, soundness of speech, all of the things that we have been discussing. If we truly walk in love, all of those things just come automatically. It would not be a case where we have to force ourselves to do the right thing. Because once we do everything out of love and not vain ambition, we wouldn't even have to break these down one by one to say, okay, I need to be patient and compassionate and gentle and kind and show self-control and soundness of speech. If we approach every situation and say, I am going to show love in this situation, we encompass all of these characteristics that we have been talking about. We wouldn't even have